Okay, thank you very much, Kat.
You're welcome.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you very much for joining us in this important committee here for the Village of Southampton. My name is Brian Egan. I am the village attorney for the village. With me here in my office is Phil Boyle, assistant village attorney, also with my office, and we're going to help facilitate the discussion tonight. First, I'd like to start by thanking everyone for joining the committee. It is important to us. It is important charge we have from the governor to be able to do this in an effective way. And we appreciate the larger community input. It is important to the process, and it will bring results and fruition that I think is going to make us all very proud of our village. With that said, let me turn it over to first introduce the two trustees who are chairing this by designation of the Board of Trustees. The first is Trustee Mark Parrish. The second is Trustee Joe McLaughlin. So let me turn it over to the two trustees if they have any words of welcome to the committee.
Sure. Good evening, everybody. And again, to echo our village attorney, thank you for wanting to get involved and to really try and connect the stakeholders, the police, the village, and the community at large to moving forward and giving our department, our community, and everybody around the best possible chance of moving forward in a positive way. And the input's going to be really, really good, and it's going to be necessary. And I'm looking forward to really see how each individual in the stakeholder group, with their input, helps us to shine. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Trustee Parrish. Hi, everyone. My name is Trustee McLaughlin, Joe McLaughlin. I just wanted to say thank you all for coming this evening. And also, I wanted to say, I think we're going to have a good discussion for the next few meetings. As the trustee liaison to the police department, I have met with them almost weekly, if not bi-weekly, by phone or in person, discussing various matters that have come before the community, and also issues that my fellow trustees and I have. So they've been very receptive, and I hope we can discuss some of these issues going forward. But I think Chief Cummings and his staff have been very receptive to things that the mayor, myself, and Trustee Parrish and others would like to see happen. So with that, I will have the Chief or Brian take over and go from there.
Thank you very much, Joe. I'll turn it over now just for a brief introduction to Chief Cummings. I don't know if any of you met him yet, but he is the chief of our village police department. And I'd just like to give him an opportunity. Again, thanks everybody for their cooperation with these Zoom intros. Everybody on this is going to get their chance of doing the same thing. So just be ready as I throw it to you game show host style. But let me introduce Chief Tom Cummings at this point. Thank you, Chief.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for participating. I'm Tom Cummings. I'm almost finishing about my 34th year with the police department. I've been the chief for the last 10 years. I was the second in command for 6 years before that. I basically held every rank in the department on my way to chief. I was the department's, we've been accredited. We were the first village police department on Long Island to be accredited back in 1993. I was the program manager from 1991 till 2017. When I turned it over to Lieutenant Sue Hurto, who's in my office with me. She's a member of my command staff. She's got 24 years with the department, and Sue has been a police officer, a detective, a sergeant, and now a lieutenant. And she, along with Chris Wetter and Captain Mike Ryan and Detective Sergeant Herm Lamison, have going to really we're doing the heavy lift on this. Very much appreciate your input. I think we started working on this right after the governor's executive order came out, so I think we're going to be in good shape, but you'll tell us what you think, and that's the whole point of this. Thanks.
Great. Thank you very much, Chief. Okay, so if I could go around for the edification of those listening, but also for the benefit of your fellow committee members to understand, who is listening and who is participating in this discussion with each other, to add not only transparency, but credibility to each other's discussions and their perspectives. Everyone's perspective is important, and we want everybody's collective experiences to benefit this committee. So if I could go around and as I call everyone, not in any order, just on the list that was circulated on the members, which by the way, we have nearly 100% attendance. We have one excused non-attendee, but it really is amazing on a commitment to get these many people here together in one night. But again, in no order, just if you could introduce yourself and then just tell the committee just briefly a summary of your background, that'd be appreciated. Milena Sandoval, please.
Hi, I'm Milena Sandoval. I am one of the social workers that works at Southhampton Elementary. And I work very closely with the Latino community in the district. I also work very closely with the SROs that are in our district. We have two, and we work really closly with them. So, I'm really happy to be a part of this, and I can't wait to hear everything. Thank you.
Thank you very much. May Zegarelli, please.
Hi, my name is May Zegarelli. I work in government. I'm a legislative aide. So I have to work with all branches of government and anything when it comes to police or the highway department. So my background is very widespread, but I'm really excited to be a part of this group.
Thank you. And what legislative aid, what level of government are you in?
I'm in the town of Southampton.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. I know we have two members of the district attorney's office, Patricia Brosco and Brendan Ahern.
Yes, good evening, everyone. My name is Brendan Ahern. I work at the Suffolk County District Attorney's Office. My position there is I am a Deputy Division Chief of the Trial Division. So in that capacity, I supervise several trial bureaus in our office, our Vehicular Crime Bureau, our Misdemeanor District Court Trial Bureau, our Case Advisement Bureau, our Intake Bureau, and our Domestic Violence Unit. Prior to joining the Suffolk County District Attorney's Office, I began my career at the Nassau County District Attorney's Office, where I worked primarily in vehicular crimes and became a deputy chief. I went out into private practice and worked as a criminal defense attorney for a short period of time after that, before coming in to the office in 2018 as the chief of the Vehicular Crimes Bureau before taking on my new duties at the beginning of this year. And I just want to thank everyone for participating, and we look forward to participating and hopefully making meaningful contributions. Thank you. Thank you, Brendan.
Patricia, would you like to say something?
Sure, thank you so much. I'm thanking everybody for inviting me to be part of this committee. I've been an assistant district attorney for 33 and a half years. I currently am the bureau chief of the East End. I just started becoming the bureau chief. I started in October of 2020. Before that, I was the bureau chief of the Major Crime Bureau. I was a deputy bureau chief of the Vehicular Crimes Bureau. Before I came to Suffolk County, I was in the Bronx District Attorney's Office for 5 years. I was in Suffolk County, I was in the Homicide Bureau, the Family Crime Bureau, a supervisor in district court. So I've jumped to different bureaus. I'm excited to be part of this committee. And if anybody ever needs anything, please feel free to call me in the East End Bureau. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Michael Horseman, are you on?
Hi, yes. Can you hear me?
Perfect. Yep. Perfect. Go ahead.
Hi, yes. My name is Detective Mike Horseman. I've been in the Southampton Village Police Department for about 14 years. Held the position of patrol officer, now recently detective. I work in a task force now with several other agencies. And I look forward to working with all of you and answering any questions that you may have that we could better assist you with the governor's executive order. Thank you.
Thank you. Willa Bernstein, please.
Hi, my name is Willa Bernstein. Thanks for including me in this panel. Very happy to be involved. I'm an attorney. I was admitted in 1993. I'm in private practice. I do some election law work, but I have a background in criminal law. So I began my career at the Manhattan Legal Aid Attorney's Office, where I represented indigent clients and often came up with alternatives to incarceration, presenting those to judges and representing clients. I went from there to the New York State Attorney General's Office, where I was in various bureaus. So I was in the Education Bureau, I was in the employment section, and then I went to the criminal division where I worked on habeas corpus cases and represented the state and wrote a lot of appellate briefs on constitutional issues. And then I was also at the Mayor's Office of Special Enforcement, where I worked on quality of life issues with a multi-agency task force, including building inspectors and fire department to shut down illegal businesses in New York City. And then finally, I was working with the NYPD, the Internal Affairs Bureau, in oversight of police excessive force cases and other complaints that came in from civilian complaint reviews and things like that. So that's my background.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Father Patrick.
Yes, hi, I'm Father Patrick Edwards. I'm at St. John's Episcopal Church as rector. I'm also vicar of St. Andrew's Dune Church, both in Southampton. I am a member and a leader on various civic and charitable boards here in Southampton. And I'm very involved with the Southampton Fire Department, where I'm both chaplain, but also serve as a member of the Fire Police Squad. And though that's a peace officer position, it's entirely separate from the Southampton Police Department, and is part of the scene support for the fire department.
Great, thank you, Father. Reverend Donald Butler, please.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to join with you tonight. My name is Reverend Dr. Donald E. Butler, pastor of the Community Baptist Church in Southampton. Prior to serving, and I've been serving the Community Baptist Church for 14 and a half years, came in 2006. Prior to that, I was a Hempstead police detective. I retired with the Hempstead Police Department. I was also an SRO, school resource officer, assigned to the Hempstead High School for 6 years. Prior to that, I was a New York City Transit Police officer for 3.5 years. And I came on in 86, left in 89, came to Hempstead and retired from Hempstead in 2006. And now I've been serving Hempstead Police Department as a chaplain for, I don't know how many years, but before I retired, I was the only chaplain that was an active police officer. And so I served as a chaplain of that and still serve as a chaplain of the Hempstead Police Department. So I'm just glad to be here tonight with each and every one of you.
Thank you, Reverend. Willie Jenkins, please.
Hello, how you doing? My name is Willie Jenkins. I am a local activist, one of the leaders of the Black Lives Matter movement of the East End. And also, you know, the community activist, Southampton, Bridgehampton, locally all around. I'm somebody that I think very much has the ear of the people of color, you know, on the East End and local groups like that. And I think that, you know, I try to do as much for the community as I possibly can. And also I think it's important that, you know, in the past, I've made mistakes and I've been in trouble. And I think that's important because I try to learn from the mistakes and teach other people to learn from their mistakes or not to make those mistakes. So I think that's very important going forward in these conversations, not just somebody who is on the other side of the law who, you know, upholds it. You know, I've been in a position where I've been getting in trouble. So I think that's important to say that I can look at it from a different perspective and give lend my, you know, information on that.
Appreciate that. Thank you very much. Lisa Votino, please.
Hey y'all, I apologize. I think I have the dreaded Rona, so I'm a little quiet than usual. I am a community organizer out here, probably for about 16 years or so. I lived on the Shinnecock Reservation. My ex and my daughter are tribal members over there. I still live in Southampton, and Willie was my partner over the summer doing organizing and supporting lots of the Black Lives Matter rallies. I also have a background in working with Suffolk County on the DOJ agreement or consent decree. I'm on the town's version of this. And I'm also in a group called Long Island Advocates for Police Accountability that is working with Suffolk and Nassau on trying to get them to do police reform. So there you have it.
Thank you, Lisa. I hope you have a mild case and feel better very soon. Good. Yes, fingers crossed for you. Let me turn last but not least, Daniel Russo, who is not unknown to everyone here and certainly not unknown in the courthouses of Suffolk County.
Good evening, Brian. Thank you very much. And thank you for allowing me the privilege of being part of this. Again, Dan Russo. I am a lawyer in private practice. My practice is out of West Hampton Beach, where I've been since 2003. I've practiced extensively in the courts in Suffolk County, predominantly on the east end of Long Island. In 2008, I had the distinct privilege of serving in an interim basis on the Southampton Town Board. And it's good to be back with some of my friends that I see here, Lisa and some others from Southampton. So it's a privilege and a pleasure to be back. In my current capacity, I'm serving as the administrator for the Suffolk County Assigned Counsel Plan. For those of you who don't know, my office is responsible for assigning private lawyers to indigent clients when the Legal Aid Society is conflicted. We handle the homicide cases where someone can't afford an attorney in the county, and my office assigns lawyers throughout the East End, including Southampton Village. So again, thank you so much, and anxious to get going.
Great. Thank you, Dan. It really is a great cross-section of the community represented here with varied backgrounds, and we appreciate everybody's contributions. So let me get into it a little bit today to give some boundaries. The schedule for today is going to be, I'm going to give a background on what this EO 203, Executive Order 203 is about. Then I'm going to turn it over and really the scope and charge of this committee. And then I'm going to turn it over to the chief for an update on where it's been so far. In contrast to some of the other jurisdictions, such as the County of Suffolk, which is much larger, Nassau County, even some of the town departments, you know, we engaged, the chief engaged, I should say, in an early start on this. And now as that's becoming to fruition, both his own internal analysis, which he is going to at a later time share with us, but also the survey, the public survey that's gone out, which was encouraged by the governor's office on an anonymous basis, widely publicized throughout the village's website and the department's website. He's going to share the results with that as well. But there has been a significant amount of work that's gotten up to that. And we say that why the department got a jump start, and now it's really time for our public portion of it, because there are 500 law enforcement agencies throughout the state. I mean, the state is diverse from Southampton to Buffalo to Syracuse to some of the smaller towns upstate. It's not one size fits all for the governor's reviews. And he acknowledges that in his production that if you haven't seen it, been circulated, the New York State Police Reform and Reinvention Collaborative has some very good resources. And one of the resources that he pulls from is from the United States Department of Justice's final report on the President's Task Force on 21st Century Policing, which was produced in May 2015 by the United States Department of Justice. It is, as a matter of fact, if you get to read the collaborative resource guide, and it is going to be published online by the village, but it is widely available throughout the web, it is significantly footnoted and relied upon. And there are milestones that are set out in that Department of Justice report that are also outlined by the governor. And the governor's proposal or the governor's review or charge to us is that this has to be a collaborative process. That collaborative is really the key word. And in this collaborative process, what are we charged with today? We're not going to be charged with, you know, solving all of the world's problems and not coming up with forced solutions on us, but to open up the doors, or at least even our eyes, to come to solutions on some of these issues and give a greater awareness to it, but also a commitment as a village, as a community, and as a police department that those things are going to get solved and looked at and fixed. And what are some of those topics that the governor outlines as a collaborative process that we should review? One, review the needs of the community served by its police agency and evaluate the department's current policies and practices. and the chief is going to give us an oral update on that later. Establish policies that allow police to effectively and safely perform their duties. Involve the entire community, which is hopefully cross-section representative here on this call, in the discussion. And I will outline at the end of the session a schedule that's going to allow a public listening session to allow other people who are not just here on this call with us, but other people to participate in the process then as well in the discussion and lend their perspectives to this review. Develop policy recommendations resulting from this review and recommendations for the village board to adopt. Offer a plan for public comment, which we will have as a draft for this committee to review, edit, change, disagree with, agree with, and then come to a final document that will then have to be certified by the State Board of Trustees, ratified and adopted, and then ultimately submitted to the state by April 1st, 2021. I also would like to say that I think that the sense of the governor's charge is not that on April 1st, we all go back to sleep. I think that it's to propose policies that we should all remain committed to, not completed by April 1st, but at least start the journey towards that better and community policing idea. So with that said, as the scope and charge of this committee by the governor, let me turn it over to the chief, if you would, for an update. And again, I appreciate everyone bearing with us as we're doing this by Zoom. It'd be much easier if we were all in the same room. But so I apologize for my kind of stilted performance. But if I could turn it over to the chief now to update us on what the department's activities have been under this Executive Order 203, what progress it's made, and where they are now.
Thank you, Brian. Okay, so when the executive order came out, there's a particular paragraph that gets into a lot of the important topics in modern policing. And we got right onto that paragraph, and things like de-escalation training, community policing, hotspot policing, and a lot of the other things. I immediately looked at that, and because we've been accredited for almost 30 years, we were in pretty good shape with our policies and procedures. But most of my police officers, especially, we have a pretty young department, have gotten a lot of the most up-to-date training. Suffolk County PD has a implicit bias training that's actually recognized nationally, and all the younger guys that went through the police academy have had that training. We have a service called Police One Academy, which is a national service. It's actually broadcasts, and so there's thousands of topics that you can use, and we, because of COVID, immediately found everything we could find on the topics the governor wanted us to train on. So we updated our de-escalation training. We updated our community policing training. I mean, we've been doing community policing as a police department since 1995. Like, we committed to it when it first started to kind of roll out into the police world. I actually wound up going to a course on it at the New York State Police Academy back in '95 when I was a new sergeant, and it's kind of like the essence of how we do our police work. So in a lot of the training that the governor is looking for, we either already had it or at least updated it. When it came to things like hotspot policing, we do hotspot policing, but we don't generally do it in the neighborhoods in this community that would have a negative impact. Our hotspot policing is like, we'll do beach patrol in the summertime. We have 3 large bars over by the train station, and I'll put guys on foot at night to deal with like quality of life, public urination, littering, drug use, overcrowding, noise complaints. That's kind of the hotspot policing we do. We don't do what you might consider negative hotspot policing. Obviously, we're involved in the schools. We have 2 SROs in our schools, which is pretty good for a small department. You know, we have 33 police officers, and 2 of them are school resource officers. So the village has been very committed and given me the resources to have police officers in the school. Plus, we have, Herm Lameson's been the longtime basketball coach at the high school. He's involved. A couple of our other young cops are coaching sports on a part-time basis in the schools. And so we try to be very much involved in the community to the extent that we can be. Now, in terms of accreditation, only 29, accreditation's been around since 1988, but only 29% of the departments in the state are accredited, which is obviously a number that you'd like to think would be better at this point. But we got on board with that very early. As I said before, we're the first village on Long Island to get accredited. We've been accredited nearly 30 years now. And as part of accreditation, there's a set of standards for how you do administrative functions, operation functions, and training functions. And you have to have a very robust set of rules and procedures to comply with the standards. So we kind of got like cobbled things together in the early part of accreditation, but in 2008, we did a complete revision of our rules and procedures. And the template we used was a department upstate that was both accredited by New York State and nationally accredited. So we took their policies, and what was appropriate to us, we adopted. And then the things that they didn't have, we either use model policies from the International Association of Chiefs of Police, or, and mostly lately, the New York State Municipal Police Training Council will put out a model policy. And so since it's a New York State policy, we try to get as close to that as we can. Like our use of force policy has been updated several times recently based on the changes in the law and the Municipal Police Training Council's recommendations. And on our website, as part of our accreditation, we've had to have our use of force policy published. And so that's available. Now, our entire manual, I'll probably, after speaking to Mr. Regan, probably give you a copy of it, but it's not for public disclosure. And you'll see it's a fairly comprehensive document, and we can talk about that at another meeting if you all want to. But for the process of this, the workbook that Brian showed, it's the meat and potatoes of it is about 140 pages. So what I did once we got that is I started to go through that, and I've read it 3 times now, and I'm going through it page by page, and all the topics that it kind of brings out as in modern policing. I'm looking at those topics, analyzing how we deal with those topics. Do we do things? And I'm finding some shortcomings. I'm not gonna say we're perfect, and we never do anything that isn't perfect. And I'm kind of based on, and I have documentation that I'll put in the report that backs up the conclusions I'm making. I'm going through this basically page by page and issue by issue, and analyzing how we do when it comes to each of these issues. And then I'm writing basically a statement that answers that topic. Now, as Mr. Regan said, we did a community survey. It's based on the Southient Town Police's survey. We modified it to make it more appropriate for the village. We got it done in the end of November. We published it on our social media, and the village put it out early December. And basically, there's 9 questions about how we perform, and then there's 4 demographic questions. And the first question that we asked was, how many times in the last 12 months have you had contact with the police department? And you got to realize there's 4,000 people in the village of Southampton in the census. We've had roughly 50 people, I think it's 51 as of tonight, that have answered the survey. We've tried to promote it in the police department and get as many people as we could to take the survey without like trying to get people that obviously would be favorable to us to take the survey. We want honest feedback. And basically, 50 people answered the question on how many times in the last 12 months have you called the police. And the general answer is 0 times for 11 people, 22 times. 22 people said 1 to 2 times, 12 people said 3 or 4 times, and 5 people said more than 5 times. And so, seems like, well, obviously about 80% of the people have called the police that answered the survey. Our next question was, if you called the police department for any reason, how quickly did we respond? And the bulk of the people, 54% said that we responded quicker than they expected. 12% 12% said the time that they thought it would expect it, and a small amount said it was too slow. And then 12% of the people just didn't answer that question, which doesn't really make sense to me, but it is what it is. The next question was, were you treated professionally and with dignity and respect? And 45 people answered that question. 44 people said yes, and 1 person said no. Now, obviously, 1 person is too many, but you know, I'm glad it's that and not the inverse of that. So, you know, obviously, like I said, we're not perfect, but it seems like that, you know, I've tried very hard to have our police officers be, you know, courteous and treat people the way they'd want to be treated if they were interacting with the police and they were on the other side of the interaction. And hopefully that comes through for the most part. The next question was, what kind of contact have you had with the police? And there was a list of types of calls. Most of it was traffic stops, non-emergency calls, and traffic accidents. Nobody who was arrested actually answered this question, which is kind of disappointing. I would have liked to get some feedback on that. And 20 of the people of the 45 that answered was just casual contact, you know, officer in the street interaction. The next question was, to what extent were you satisfied with the performance and the interaction? And basically 57% said very satisfied, 25% said satisfied, and 9% said dissatisfied, which, and 7% didn't answer the question. So obviously I think 9% is not really an ideal number for us. We need to work on that. So I'm glad that, you know, the bulk of the people thought we did a good job, but obviously almost 10% of the people not thinking we did a good job is something we need to work on. The next question was, overall, how well do you feel Southient Village Police Department does in providing services to the community? And 49 people answered that question. 41 said excellent, 2 said good, 5 said fair, and 1 said poor. So obviously we have somebody in there that we didn't have a good interaction with, didn't do a good job for. At least they perceive us as not having a good job, and might as well have not done a good job if they don't like the way we did things. The next question is, do you feel the Village Police Department should play a role in addressing the following conditions? Check all that apply. And we have school safety, homelessness, noise complaints, traffic infractions, mental health interventions, and drug overdoses. And the 2 main, they're all pretty, it's a, you know, 48 people answered. The lowest number on that was 29, which was mental health interventions, but school safety was 41 out of the 48. Homelessness was 33. Noise complaints were 32. Traffic infractions were 44. Mental health 29, and drug overdoses 31. So there's a pretty wide group of things that the community would like us to continue to work on, which is good for us. I mean, we are very much a community-oriented police department, so all those things are definitely things we would like to work on. This is, how confident are you that a complaint about a police officer will be investigated? Now, of that 49 people answered that question, 27 said extremely confident, 9 said very confident, 5 said somewhat confident, 6 said not so confident, and 2 said not confident at all. Now, with our complaint policy, we have a complaint form that you can come into headquarters and we'll either help you fill out the complaint or you can do it online. It's been on our website. I'll have to check and make sure it's still there, but if it's not, it'll be there by tomorrow. We do training on it with all the supervisors. Basically what you'll do is you'll come in and see a supervisor and they'll help you do the complaint. The complaint comes to me, and based on the complaint, I assign it to a supervisor to investigate. And we will actually, unless it's something that's just on the face of the complaint, something that's really impossible to investigate, we will investigate it. And then the findings of the investigation will come to me, and I will write a letter to the person, as long as they give me an address, and send them the results of the investigation. Now, you need to understand, now I'm sure there's probably some people, more people than complain or maybe dissatisfied, but on average, we get 3 external complaints a year. And considering we do 1,600 calls, we make about 600 arrests, we write between parking tickets and traffic tickets, 10,000 tickets a year. It's probably a number that's maybe too low, and maybe we need to do a better job of letting people know that they can complain. But I don't think it's, I think my cops for the most part are doing a bad job. So if people complain, we'll investigate it. And the more details that you give us, the better we will be able to investigate it. A lot of the, like, for lack of a better way to say it, discipline that occurs in the police department is generated by officers against other officers, because police officers don't want to see their partner do things that'll embarrass the police department and maybe get them in trouble. So a lot of what we deal with is a sergeant will see his cop doing something that doesn't like, or her. We have a female sergeant too, and we deal with it. You know, we work on it, and we do a lot of training, and we really don't accept like unprofessional behavior here. So I think we're in good shape, but like I said, I think the amount of complaints versus the amount of interactions, we could probably do a better job of letting the community know they can complain. And maybe that's something we can improve on. The next question was, the Southient Village Department has a good working relationship with minority communities, ? 49 people answered that question. 27 said they strongly agree. 13 said they agree. 5 didn't answer the question. 2 disagreed, and 2 strongly disagreed. So obviously there was a percentage of people that don't think we do a good job. Seems like the majority think we do, but like I said, there's always room for improvement. So we certainly can work on that. Then there was demographics. What is your gender? It was 49 people answered. 18 were male, 27 were female, 4 preferred not to answer. What is your age group? It was a pretty widely spread. Nobody under 18. 18 to 24 was 3 people. 25 to 34 was 11 people. 35 to 44 was 16 people. 45 to 54, 5 people. 55 to 64, 5 people. And over 65 was 9 people. So it was basically 25 to 44, and then over 65 was the bulk of our respondents. We asked, what is your race? 49 people answered. 27 were Caucasian, 4 African American, 4 Latino, 0 Native Americans, 3 multiracial, 1 other race, and 10 preferred not to answer. We asked, are you a visitor or a resident of Southampton? Out of the 49, 39 people were residents, 9 were visitors, and 1, it just says archived. I don't know what that means, but obviously a glitch in the software. If you want to let people know about the survey, again, it's on svpd.com. It's on the village's website. You have to search survey, and it'll come up. It's on the police department's Instagram.
And Facebook.
I don't think it's on Facebook, but it will be. And we certainly encourage you all to get the word out, and so we can get some more information, better sample, more feedback. And we're going along with this. And as I said, I would say I'm about 60% of the way through the manual and addressing the issues in the manual. I should have that somewhat roughly fleshed out by the end of next week and ready for you all for the next meeting to take a look at and comment on.
Thank you, Chief. I'm going to open it up to the committee for a second, but there were two questions came out. One, can you distribute the survey results to the committee as it's in the form that it is now? I'll just ask Charlene or Miranda to do that as it exists as of now. 2, the survey is going to remain up, and one of the questions was whether the survey was issued in Spanish.
No, but if we can do it, we will.
Yeah, so if we can get that changed into Spanish and then posted as well, and then advertised, that would be good. Okay, I'll open it up to any questions to the chief from the committee. Go ahead, Lisa. I'm sorry. I saw Lisa's hand up first.
Oh, good.
So I think it's great that you guys are being proactive on it. I think one of the things that we really need to consider is not having those survey results go right back to the police department. There should be some sort of mechanism, either like a subcommittee of this or somebody at Village Hall that should be getting that, because you happen to notice that the people that were arrested didn't respond to certain questions. Well, that's because their survey is going back to the police. So if we really want to have a survey that's all inclusive and where people are going to answer it honestly, so we can get a good picture, again, good or bad, we really want it to be as unbiased as possible and have people feel as comfortable as possible to respond to it.
Thank you, Lisa. Chief, I think that's a good suggestion. If we can, let's publish the survey to the committee as is now. We're going to have a listening session in a couple of weeks. So we'll advertise the survey, and then in that couple of week interim in the middle, we'll adopt Lisa's suggestion to have that survey results dead end in return, back to the clerk's office in Village Hall. Thank you. Mr. Jenkins, please.
How you doing? I know you were talking about the sample size of the survey. With just one suggestion, I'm not sure if you guys are open to it, but just certain demographics aren't going to go on the police website and fill out the survey. And that should be common sense. And I don't mean to talk out of turn, but most people in the African-American community aren't going to go on a police website and be like, oh, let me go fill out this police survey. My suggestion, being somebody that was part of the community, have an officer go door to door. It's, in certain areas where you want the survey sites definitely filled. Just go door to door. Say, hey, listen, how are we doing? How are we doing? How are we doing to you guys? And then you'll get a more fair read, because I'm not going to just, even me, I don't do anything wrong nowadays. I do good stuff with the community. I try to be as proactive as possible, but I'm still not going to go on the police thing and fill out a survey and be like, and tell you how you're doing. But if you were to come knock on my door and say, hey, listen, we're your public servants. We just want to see how we're doing. It looks like you care. It looks like you really want to know, not that it's forced. Because when it's just on your thing, it's like, okay, somebody told me to put this on my website. I put it up there. If you answer, you answer. If you don't, you don't. But if you actually get proactive and have officers come out and say, hey, listen, how are we doing? We want to know how we're doing in the community. Then it builds trust. You really want to know. You really care. It's just a suggestion. It's not a knock on anything. I hope you guys don't take it wrong and everything like that. But, you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yep. No, I appreciate that perspective. I think it's a manpower issue going door to door, and you're never going to get a perfect sample if you go door to door too. But I do think that there is a possibility for outreach via publicizing that survey via churches or other community groups, places, supermarkets, the post office, places where people frequent go, where they're comfortable, where they're not necessarily in an interaction standpoint, a forced interaction standpoint, I should say.
Yes.
So I think that's a good.
I know it's a little tough door to door. It's just a suggestion I was throwing out, but
yep,
I think you get the idea.
Yeah, absolutely. And whether that place is, again, where people get coffee, where people are comfortable and where they would normally be, to be able to get that information to respond, to increase that participation. I think it's a good point. So, Chief, I wonder if we could make up some kind of flyers to get that out and put those, have the officers put those up in some of those places.
That would be no problem.
Great, excellent, thank you.
Reverend Butler, please. Yeah, I agree with what Lisa was saying, because if you have someone in between the police department, it would relieve some of that apprehension they have with dealing with the police. I know that firsthand. Take advantage of the Black clergy. You have at least three churches of color my church, Community Baptist Church, First Baptist Church on Halsey, and also King's Chapel. And we could utilize that, and we could speak to. I mean, I always speak to my members about police and interaction with police, so they pretty much understand that if I bring it to them, it's not a trap. You know, I'm not trying to trap anyone. I'm really trying to get information, and I think the police department would do great justice if they got more. I mean, 50 people out of 4,000 people, and I was going to ask the question: how many of them were minorities, or people of color? And I see you have four that were Black and 4 Latino. I think that is a very small number. And that's why you got some of the answers that you got also, because most of the people I deal with do not trust the police. They do not. And, well, let me change that. The older ones do, the younger ones don't. And I think we need to really address that. You know, when you just put the, this is my first time even hearing about the survey at all. It's my first time hearing it. So when I go back now, and when I get off of here, I'm going to put it on the church Facebook page. I'm going to put it on my Facebook page, and I'm going to get some people to fill out that survey because I think it's important for the community.
Thank you, Reverend. All good points. And I know I saw that Isabel joined a bit late, so I'm sorry I didn't get to have her introduce herself with the group, but I do want to appreciate and recognize Isabel Sepulveda, who joined us. Hello, Isabel. And she made a suggestion too, and again, I'm going to encourage everyone to talk not only out of it, you see the little chat box, but to encourage the dialogue that the church, the Roman Catholic Church and other denominations is very important to the Hispanic community as well. And
yeah, most of the Latinos are Catholic, so, and they go for everything to the two. We have 2 Latino priests in the Catholic Church here locally. And I mean, you name it, they go for, I mean, for everything. They look for the priests because they trust them. I mean, we trust them. By when do you need to have these survey finished? Sorry, I was so late, but I couldn't connect. So sorry about that.
So I think our plan is to have the group listening session on February 3rd. We can close the survey sometime after that, because then our next meeting is going to be after the listening session on February 3rd. It's going to be March 10th, the review of the report, the draft report. So if we close this survey, say, you know, that same week of the listening session, we'll be able to disseminate to the group the final survey results.
Okay, so we can help. Yeah, okay.
It'll be we'll still have a couple of weeks, almost a month.
Mm-hmm.
Trustee Parrish, please.
Yes, thank you. Just listening to some of the feedback that I got from the last few people that you know, spoke, and also some that did the chat. I want to just add the fact that possibly some of the recommendations could be used by the committee members, some of the people that do have the ability to either get via email or paper, and they can then hand out to the appropriate communities that do need to have a stronger part of this. If there is a possibility that some of these community stakeholders on here right now do want to maybe add a couple questions to it that they see, I'd be more than happy to you know, address that also. But I do think the points are 50 people being you know, surveyed. We should be able to at least get quite a few hundred, if not more, and having some of the stakeholders that are on this be able to disseminate that themselves to the appropriate people that they feel really need to be heard. I think that would be a great way for this committee to, you know, put their best foot forward and move forward. So, you know, Charlene, you're on there. You can help out with this, Brian, and any stakeholders. We can continue to have communication either through our Charlene Cagle-Bates, who is our village administrator, and then emails throughout amongst each other. I think it's very important that the stakeholders do communicate with each other also. So that way, when we come to these future listening meetings, we are all on the same page about where we can go with this.
You know, can I say something for the Latino community? I know somebody asked already if it was in Spanish and they say no. I mean, for the Latino community, most of the people that I know in the village, they are not fully bilingual. They will not feel comfortable if I give them a survey in English. So I mean, if you need help to translate it, I will be happy to help.
That's excellent. Thank you very much. No, I think it's a great suggestion. We're going to commit to getting it in Spanish for this next round very soon. Chief Cummings, please.
Just so you guys understand, the survey is Survey Planet. It's not actually like our police department survey. So you can take the link that we have and you take it and cut it and paste it and use it however you distribute it how you want to. It's not on our, I mean, the link is on our webpage, but it's not our survey. So it's a third-party surveys company, and we just can log in and see the results. But like I said, so there's no misunderstanding. It's not a police, like it doesn't, you're taking the survey and I can look at the results, but I'm not controlling the results. So take the link off of our webpage or the village webpage and distribute it. You just have to cut and paste it.
Thank you for clearing that up.
Regan.
Yes.
Can I just chime in when we get a second just to reiterate some of the stuff that the chief said?
Sure, absolutely. Your video wasn't on, Mike, so I didn't see your hand up. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't got my hand. Sorry. Can I go now, or is
go ahead. Yep,
else speaking? I don't want to interrupt anybody.
Yep, go ahead.
Are you able to start your video for us?
No. Who was that?
I am the Zoom coordinator for the village.
Okay, no, I can't start my video. But can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, so I just wanted to touch base on a few things, of what the chief just said. We had approximately, we get about 16,000 central complaint numbers a year, for Southampton Village. That's, in approximately 7 square miles, dealing with arrests, service calls, 80 cases. We're a very service-oriented police department where, we do everything. One day you're handling a rape, the next day you're helping an elderly person try to figure out how to call to get more oil for their tank. So we're very service-oriented police department. And out of the 16,000 central complaint numbers that we have in a year, as the chief mentioned, I'm sure we'd like it to be 0, but we've only had 3 external complaints that get to the chief out of 16,000 documented incidents with the residents. So, again, we would like that to be 0, but I think I think that's, obviously good odds. Just some of the other things, the chief's been the chief of police here for about 10 years. We've had, to my knowledge, no federal lawsuits regarding false arrests in that time, no excessive force lawsuits in that time. So that does say a lot under the administration currently that we're under. Things have changed. Again, I've been here about 14 years. I've been on the PBA board of directors for about 8 years. And those are good, those are good results, I think. We could always do a better job. Unfortunately, sometimes people do come in to complain, and it's, sometimes because they got a traffic ticket. Unfortunately, that's something that has to be dealt in the court system. I understand it. I've gotten tickets before in my lifetime, and it's not a fun thing to have to deal with. But unfortunately, we do have to enforce certain laws and regulations and stuff like that. Our police response is anywhere from maybe 10, 15 seconds to about 4 minutes. Out of the majority of the police departments in Long Island, I personally do not live in the village. It has taken over an hour for a police officer to come. That's a long time. Again, if it does take longer than 4 minutes, it's because it's a non-emergency call and the officer could be coming from the opposite side of the village. So I think our response time is very good.
We have a hand up. Did you want to ask a question?
Kat, I was just gonna wait until
okay,
until Mike was done with his statement. So I got this. Go ahead, Mike. Go ahead.
Yep, I'm just about done. And the other thing, we've had a few drug overdoses, that obviously the chief is aware of, and the community. Both of them happened in Southampton Village here. I can't comment too much on it, but we believe that that the person responsible for that was charged with charges not necessary for the drug overdose, but additional charges. The chief of police gave extraordinary amount of manpower to deal with those overdoses. So, we could do the best for the families to find out who was responsible for that. So that's all I had. I just want to just to reiterate a little stuff that Chief Cummings said, and that's all I have.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Mr. Jenkins, you had your hand up first.
Yeah, how you doing? I appreciate you, Mike. Right? I appreciate letting us know those numbers and figures and everything. Just a little insight. Just coming from the other side. I lived on the hill for many years in Southampton in the village, and just you guys as a police officer or as police officers do a great job. Doing your job and you do your job the correct way. But in a lot of instances, it's also done in the wrong way. Now, things that you think that, people are doing these, filling out these things and, you're getting the correct numbers, but the numbers are skewed because they're not actually, people are going to complain about something that happened to them, because if you complain to the police and the police did something wrong to you, that doesn't make a lot of sense from your viewpoint. I'm not going to complain to the person. You know what I'm saying? If I get picked on by a bully, I'm not going to go to the bully and be like, his friend and be like, hey, your friend's picking on me. Because most likely his friend is not going to tell on him. You know what I'm saying? I would have to go to a different source to where I know that the information is going to get put in the correct hands and then it can be taken care of. And I'm not calling you guys bullies. I'm just using a
No, I understand. Yep, absolutely.
Okay. So just an example. I've got pulled over probably 100 times in Southend Village. Never the cops were jerks to me. Never. Not one time were they nasty, mean. But they would pull you over for very suspect reasons, and then things from those suspect reasons, you would get stuck. It would turn into something that it wasn't supposed to. Definitely 100% was not supposed to turn into that. Now, they weren't nasty about it, but they definitely were doing something they weren't supposed to be doing. And it comes into play like, do I say the cop was nasty and mean? No, because that didn't happen. But if I get pulled over for a license plate light, then why am I getting put outside my car and searched? That happened so many times. It's crazy. And I've seen it happen, but I don't see it happen to certain people, especially people that weren't living necessarily in certain places. So I complained to, at that time, I complained to my friends, and I'd be like, oh man, it's crazy. They searched me, But I'm not going to go, hey chief, they searched me when I feel like it's rigged. So I'm not going to go to the police who did it and then be like, hey guys, like you guys are doing this. You're doing it. So it's like, and I just don't want to play. I just want to play this game. So if I'm speaking candidly, just understand it's just from speaking from experience, and it's not a knock against anybody or anything. Just understand that this stuff does happen. Nobody was being nasty or mean about it. They did their jobs, but it turns into things. And I'm like, yo, that's not right. Because it's not right. It's not right. Now, just because you were smiling when you did it doesn't make it right. How does that turn into that? It was no probable cause, nothing. And then I could tell you, hey, they had no probable cause to do this. But I'm telling the police that they had no probable cause. They're going to make up probable cause. I've seen it happen 100 times. And it's just like, that's where the mistrust comes in. And I've had police who completely were the opposite, and they did their jobs completely fine. So it's not in every instance. And they made me, yo, I should trust the police. But most of the times it was like, that wasn't the case. It was like, yo, all right, now it's going somewhere else. Like, or if you're going to give me a ticket, give me a ticket. But now you're looking for something. What are you trying to imply? What are you saying? Why am this happening to me? I've been in plenty of situations where it didn't happen to people who weren't doing that. So why aren't they getting it? They got the same type of ticket, but they didn't get pulled out their car. They didn't get searched. They didn't get, oh, it smells like this in here, but nothing is in there. Like, you know what I'm saying? You understand what I'm trying to say? And too many times when we do these board meetings and things like this, we play these number games when the numbers don't accurately. Please don't do that. And I'm just being candid, and I want us to have an honest thing. If we're going to do this, let's do it right. Those numbers do not apply. They don't work. They're not real. Because I'm not going to go to, nobody's doing that. Nobody's going complaining to the police when I think the police are being away. It just doesn't happen. So let's not do that. And like I said, the police, they do their job correctly in the sense of they're trained to be very polite, but there still are very explicit biases that happen. And as far as stops and things like that, and that's what we need to to address, and it will be a lot more trust in the police department if we could just see even playing field with that. You know, people from the Hill, from the res, they get pulled over specifically and get certain things happen to them, where somebody who lives on, I don't know, the other streets like that, it doesn't happen to them. And it's not like I'm talking from non-experience. I've lived there for years. You guys know that. People pulled me over you can look it up. You know what I'm saying? It's not like I'm not making this up. So I just don't want to play this game, because I would rather not be a part of this if this is going to happen. It happened in the summer. We did some things, and I talked to the police. They're awesome. They are great. The chiefs are great. They're very, it's not, I just understand, I'm not saying this out of a place of hate or spite or anything toward the police, but I just want it to be real. You understand?
Can I ask you a question just for, general, really kind of educational? That's a good perspective, and you feel uncomfortable complaining to the police department, which, I don't think you're alone in your opinion. Where would you feel comfortable if you say you had an interaction that you thought was inappropriate or you didn't like with a police officer? Where would you feel, as of right now, sitting as you are, where would you feel comfortable lodging that complaint?
So if I knew I wasn't, somebody wasn't playing with a loaded deck, I'd feel comfortable. But as of right now, there's nowhere to where people don't trust. It's not just the police. People don't trust, certain entities, because they don't know if that information is going to be, even listened to. You know what I'm saying? How many times hey, this is going on, and they just like, no, this isn't going on, or this isn't going on. No, that is going on. You know what I'm saying? It's just like, so what am I telling you for? Who am I going to tell this to? And it has to be an entity. It can't just be a person, because it has to be some kind of board or group, and then it falls back into it's some kind of figurehead of government that, who really trusts anybody like that. People don't really trust politicians. That's not a thing. Like, people know, hey, we gotta put our trust into them to an extent. But if you ask everybody behind closed doors, they're gonna be like, yeah, you really can't trust politicians like that. Yeah, and I'm just keeping it 100% honest. That's the general consensus, is that it's something shady going on in government or across the board. But we know, for the most part, we try to put our faith in them as much as we can. So it's like you guys got to understand that. And when we get into these meetings, stop speaking like it's oh yeah, everybody's like, no, that's not true. That's not real. The best thing I could say is probably to do. I would feel comfortable. Black people feel comfortable. I'm just saying, speaking from Black people, Latino people, like the young lady said, the church. I would speak to my church about it. If you ask maybe like church members, and they were like, hey, this is a group from of deacons or trustees that, hey, listen, you can complain here, and then we can get it we can do an open meeting, open forum, where it's like, okay, now I can't hide my hand. I can't say, okay, I'll take this information and I'll get back to you guys. Now it's like an open meeting. Like, we're having a meeting now, and I'm in this meeting, you're in this meeting. Hey guys, we got these complaints, and then it's all open, and we are like, okay, so I can take a serious look into this, but I can't give it to the police officers and be like, oh yeah, I got this complaint about myself. Okay, now the complaint is gone, as far as I know, or not. Not saying you guys are doing that, but just understand how it looks. You know what I mean? Not saying at all that you guys are doing anything wrong in that sense, but understand how it looks. And I would not do that. But if it was like, Black people trust their church, just is what it is. They trust their deaconess, they trust their board of trustees and all that. They would go, and I'd be like, hey, listen, man, like the survey, like you said, we go, it's a thing. Spanish people, Latino people, excuse my language, they trust, and they go, they say, hey, listen, this happened to me, but I would never tell somebody in an authoritative position, because it wouldn't go anywhere, or I wouldn't think it would go anywhere. Just that's the stigma that is on it. Not that you guys are, adding to it, but it's the stigma's there, and it just is what it is. So you got to figure out how to get around it if you want accurate numbers.
Thank you. I'm going to go to Ms. Votino, and then Chief Cummings next.
Yeah, so I'm going to piggyback on what Willie just said, and it's also kind of a recurring theme. And I know it's cross jurisdictions. I'm just using this as an example. So when we were doing the town committee, there was a big issue. If you need to make a complaint, you are submitting that complaint to the police department in one way or another. And And we came up with the suggestion with, why don't you have community leaders? You know, basically we came up with like the stakeholders that are on the committee, that people felt comfortable, or not on the committee, but still in the same community, being able to, you know, talk to somebody, go to the police and say, hey, listen, I have this, you know, this complaint, this happened, these are the details to a certain degree. Then if the police need to speak to that individual, we could act as advocates with them, just kind of hold their hand through it. And that's a process that we worked out in the town. It's also, you know, I didn't know, and when I raised this, Willie actually did know this, that in the town, every officer carries a compliment complaint form on them. So if you ask for one during an encounter, they're supposed to give you one. I don't know if the village has that policy or not. And also you can submit it online. And I also think, I don't remember which jurisdiction, because I'm dealing with a lot of them. You can actually go to the library and submit a form there. And I think those are all really good things. The one other thing that I kind of want to piggyback on this with is that I know, Chief Cummings, that you're going through the manual and you're updating it. What I'm hoping that you will do is that we don't have a lot of these meetings scheduled, but I would hope that you would take our input in some of those policies, because as I'm working through this in other jurisdictions, we're realizing that, you know, what a policy is and then how it actually is implemented at the community level, particularly communities of color, there's a whole vast difference in that. And I know, as far as my goal, and I'm sure everybody's goal here, is we want our police department to be the best that they can, and our community to be the best that they can. So I'm happy to work with you on that, because I'm a bit of a policy wonk, but I don't want it to be where like the manual is there and you're not getting input that may be really valuable to you at the end of the day into the department.
Sorry about that. Yes, thank you, Lisa. I was on mute. Thank you. Chief?
I agree with basically everything that both of you said. Obviously, I said we have multiple thousands of interactions, and 3 complaints is not obviously reflective of, just statistically not realistic. One of the things I don't know if you wouldn't know, we did a body camera trial last summer, and so, you know, obviously the village hasn't gone there yet, but I think like Mr. Jenkins says, like if a cop pulls you out of the car for no reason, that's going to be on tape. And so I, as the chief, very much have no problem with body cameras, and if the village was willing to do it, and we've already talked to the PBA and kind of worked out the ground rules, and we definitely, you know, it's a step we could take as well. It's one of the, besides the things that you've suggested, it's a possible solution to some of those problems.
Thank you, Chief. And the Reverend Donald Butler, please.
Yeah, to the Chief, how did the PBX receive that wearing cameras? Because we didn't have cameras when I retired in 2006. But the question was asked to me, and I said the camera would have been my friend, because that's how I worked. So I really wouldn't have been in opposition of a camera, because if someone said something that was wrong, it's there on video. And if I did something wrong, it would be there on video also. So I think the camera is a police officer's friend, unless the police officer is doing something that's not right. And the camera, the police department, the administration would have to hold every police officer accountable to actually having that camera on with no excuses, because some people will turn the camera off, or they'll cover the lens, or, you know, they'll do something if they're doing something wrong, so there'll be no visual. So I think that it would be another thing that the supervisor would really have to supervise and make sure, just periodically check that if you ever get to that point, that your camera is on and working.
The only real problem the PBA had was that they didn't want the administration of the police department watching it to find like really minor violations of our rules, like a guy wasn't wearing his hat or something, and using that to discipline them. The regular stuff that they did in the street, they didn't have any problem with. The only other concern they really had was the community foiling video footage and putting it on, out into the world and compromising their safety possibly. So we were able to kind of come to a reasonable agreement on all those things. If we did go to body cameras on a regular basis, we'd have to make it a more comprehensive policy. But for the couple of months that we had them in the summer of 2019, it was definitely a workable compromise, and it went well. I mean, we really didn't see anything, and we had identified some tactics. Like, we had a guy, as an example, a cop turned his back on someone we knew from watching the video was going to get arrested, and that was obviously not a good idea for the cop to do. So, like, that was the things we saw, not so much of, mistreating people. Plus, we did some studying and we realized that after a couple of years and the cops get used to having a camera on, they're going to kind of revert to their natural behavior. And if you got a cop that's not a good police officer, you're going to see it. So.
Exactly. And also, I do agree with the PBA in the sense that it shouldn't be used for punitive measures from the administration. I mean, I definitely agree with that, because, I mean, a cop not wearing his hat or whatever, tie may not be on correctly, whatever. I don't think it should be used for that. I think it really should be used so you could have a better relationship with the community.
Can I speak on that?
Go ahead, Mike.
So there's a bunch of positive and negatives about the body camera. We did a quick trial run. I think it was 2 or 3 weeks. We ended up setting up a policy with our PBA attorneys and the village's attorney. I've been in situations where I wish I had him. I've been surrounded before by a lot of people, who wanted to hurt the few police officers who were on site. And at that time, I wish I had it, because the public would have been able to see why certain force was used. When you have 150 people on 2 or 3 cops surrounding them, you got to do what you got to do to, make sure you're going home to your family. So for certain situations like that, it's good. I get concerned. One of our main concerns was that the chief mentioned, and Reverend, how you also mentioned about discipline, that we did not want it to be used towards disciplining an officer, whether that supervisor has an issue with a certain police officer. And especially right now, we have a lot of young guys. We don't want it to become, well, your tactics were a little off on this, where now the cop is nervous to do his actual job. I'm not worried at all that any police officer here that we have currently would act unprofessional or anything. If anything, it would help us a lot with any complaints that do come, because, obviously there will be video of it. I do have some concerns with certain cases that go to court. Maybe some of the ADAs could speak on that. I feel now everyone relies solely on video, that some things do occur that the video might not catch. So a little bit of my concern was, how would it affect a case that goes to trial possibly as well, with the jury. There are some other issues where, we've been, you're driving around, your body camera isn't on because you're just driving. You're not, necessarily dealing with anyone. And it's happened before where you had somebody threw something out of a police car. Now you get it out of the car quickly to act, but nothing's on video because it happened so quickly where you didn't have time to turn on that camera. So those are just some of our concerns. But again, nothing's always going to be perfect. But again, we could speak all night about body cameras, about pros and cons. But again, I'm not worried about any of our membership. would be doing anything wrong.
Okay, thanks, Mike. So we're mention body cams. We'll put body cams in the report. We're going to encourage a further review of body cams. You know, body cams, it's like a three-legged stool, I always say, with body cams. There's three elements to that, and if any leg of the stool falls, the whole system doesn't work. You know, body cams need good equipment, it needs good policy, and it needs good training. And without those three, the body cams aren't going to work. And also, you know, the other part about body cams is that you do get the whole story. You don't just get the 10-second snippet. You get the before, you get the after, you get the during, so you get more of a comprehensive thing. But I see two other hands up. Before I go to that, can I go to only because the district attorney's office was mentioned in Executive Horseman's presentation. Can I go to Assistant District Attorney Roscoe, please?
Sure. Just like the Reverend Butler said, cameras are our friends. We have video store cameras right now that doesn't capture everything, and we deal with that. The camera is our friend. It helps us prosecute. And we can explain to a jury, you know, the angle or the timing. That's my opinion. I'm sure, Brendan, would you like to weigh in?
Sorry, Trish, I'm having some connectivity issues, but I would echo those sentiments.
All right, thanks. Let's go to Ms. Zagarelli, please.
Sorry, I was on mute. Mine is not about body cams. It was a little bit taking it a bit backwards, but I noticed on the website that some of the forms are printable and going to some of the concerns. I don't know per se if someone were to have a complaint or they went home or anything like that, that they would have, you know, access to a printer. It might be better to have some of these forms on an online platform where they could submit them and actually know that it's documented and going into the right hands.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Sandoval, please.
I think I saw someone had one more comment about the body cams. I don't know if they want to go before me.
Yes, if that's okay with you, unless...
yeah.
Yes?
Yeah.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so just one more comment about the body cameras that, you know, unfortunately, as you said, Mr. Egan, it costs a lot of money. Approximately, I think for Southient Village to have the correct equipment would be probably another $1 million a year. So, you know, it's not cheap. It's just something, you know, to consider further as well.
Thank you. Ms. Sandoval, please.
Yeah, so to take it back to when Chief was speaking at the beginning, you mentioned that the newer cops had received implicit bias training through Suffolk PD Academy. I was just wondering, does the Southampton Town Police Department receive any sort of implicit bias training? And if they do, what does that look like? How often do they receive it? And if they don't, you know, do you guys have any plans on incorporating that into some of your trainings?
Well, I have no control over what the town police do, but their officers, for the most part, go to the same police academy. Occasionally, we hire police officers from NYPD, but I'm sure they get a pretty good version of that type of training as well. Right now, for the more experienced guys like me, who, you know, have almost 34 years on, the county is going to do an in-service version of that training for our more experienced officers. We're just waiting for them because of COVID. It's tough to schedule training, and as soon as, you know, it becomes more possible to do training, I think everybody on the East End, every police department on the East End will take advantage of that program.
Thank you, Chief. Any other hands that want to speak as of now? Okay. All right. Seeing none, let me move towards the schedule for the balance of the committee. It was distributed to you. If you haven't seen this yet, I think it was attached in your original Zoom invitations. Our next dates, and for those people who are listening, we are going to advertise the February 3rd, 2021 stakeholders group public listening session. We'll provide a public notice in the paper. And the question for the committee now, because we want to widen that distribution of the survey, get it out to those community locations as suggested by Mr. Jenkins and others on the churches, and use the power of the pulpit to get that word out. We could extend the time for the survey. Is the committee's thought to have it on February 3rd and have it closed so we have the results the night of that listening session? Or is that not necessarily important? Close it, say, the week or two afterwards and just distribute it to the committee before they review the report, say, towards the end of February? Meaning, do you want to have the survey results closed before the 3rd so that we can discuss it within the context of the listening group? Is that enough time? I'll take a hand if anybody's got any thoughts. Ms. Bernstein, please.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that that's not, it doesn't seem like enough time if we want to just help distribute the survey, you know, amongst the panel getting out to their communities and whatever. We need to allow more time for people to respond to the survey so we can have a better sample group than the 50 that have responded. I mean, you know, or a goal in terms of what number we should get to so we have a meaningful sample, so we involve the community in, you know, in the process, because one of the whole things was trust and, you know, making it accessible to various stakeholders, but not, you know, so I think we need to allow more time to get those answers back and have, you know, an analysis, to be able to do an analysis so we can speak meaningfully about it.
Okay. Mr. Russo?
Brian, Ms. Bernstein said what I was about to say. I think you do a disservice to the chief by closing it early. Let the clergy, let Reverend Butler do his thing, and why not have as many of those surveys as possible? I mean, you have till April to, you know, be able to say that you did due diligence and to reach out to every corner of the village. That's just my thought.
Okay, thanks, Dan. Okay,
I just have a quick question, because our agenda seems very much survey driven. Are we going to be reviewing any of the policies? Because that certainly is something that from EO 203, we're, as a community, we're supposed to be doing. And that's supposed to go in before the plan, because that's supposed to be input that's included in the plan.
So that's a fair question. You know, I think that all of what we're running against is the governor's clock on this with April 1st. I think that the process envisioned a longer solution finding post April 1st, which I think is going to be incumbent upon our community to make that happen, and this village board and this village police department. The report needs to be submitted by April 1st. So as the schedule as proposed now has a February 3rd listening session, February 26th draft report due, and then allow the committee to have enough time to review it, have a third stakeholders meeting on March 10th. The Board of Trustees would have to enact this on the 23rd, and then the 31st, the mayor would have to sign the certification. So we're dealing to a certain extent with a calendar set by the governor, with no indication that that's going to be extended. So I'm not sure in that calendar where else it would have it, except in the context of the draft report, that if the policy analysis is going to be done by the chief and then responded to, again, it's not the entire police manual that's going to be reviewed. And if you look at any other draft reports that have been submitted on by other towns or counties so far, it did not have that. If you look at the resource guide set forth by the governor, it has specific areas of questions that are going to be analyzed by the police department. And we're going to, once that report is then drafted, I think that's the opportunity to have comments, questions, edits on what those policies are.
We actually received clarification from the governor on this. This plan is not supposed to come from the police department. The plan.
No, we are 100%.
The plan is supposed to. We can't. You know what I'm saying? Like you can't. We're going to say there's policies, but none of us have given any kind of input on those policies and how they could be better in our community.
Yeah, so I think what the process that we envision is that someone's got to write the report, and it's our office that's going to write it on review of the policies and then submit it to this board for its comments. So we have a context to actually review it in.
And what happens if the whole thing has to be scrapped by then?
That could absolutely happen.
So what I'm saying is, wouldn't it make more sense to be more proactive in it than get to a point where we have to have a plan going on April 1st and then we're up a creek without a paddle?
That is, yeah. That's certainly one of two options. Although I don't envision.
I'm just saying,
happening.
maybe the plan will be perfect. But we're not putting a cushion in for ourselves on what if we have to go back, because then there's no time.
Yeah, if you're talking to the governor's office, we would appreciate an extension of time to do that at any time. But I think that's unfortunately, you know, we're all playing up against that calendar, and I think to. You know, the way we reviewed the resource guide put out by the governor, and I've had discussions with the governor's office too, they don't anticipate a page-by-page review of the entire police manual.
That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that there's more than just a survey and a listening session. It's supposed to be more of a dialogue, and we don't have any meeting in here for dialogue about policies or about things that maybe an idea that anybody in here could bring to the table. You know what I'm saying? Like it's a very tight, rigid schedule. Like I would almost be willing to meet a little bit more if it means that we'll have a more comprehensive plan to submit to the governor, and one that is better for all of us.
Thank you. Reverend Butler, please.
Yes, I think what Lisa's saying is really correct, because you see that's exactly what happened in Nassau County. They're packed, and there's CCT, whatever that stands for, on those who were responsible for putting it together. They have all resigned, and I have documentation. They resigned and stated they're going to send their own suggestions to the governor themselves, but they stepped down from Nassau County Police, Nassau County's program. So that's something that you really need to be concerned about, because if it is only the police department and the county saying, or in this case, police department and the village saying it, and then the stakeholders or the community saying something totally different, it's going to cause confusion on April the 1st. So I think what Lisa's saying is really something just to think about, you know, because first of all, it's a lot of work. I'm looking at what the chief has done already. That's a lot of work. It's already done. But still, the concern is you don't want it to get all the way to April the 1st and find out that the people who you want a relationship with has rejected it and walked away from it. And I'm only saying that because I get information from, you know, through my PBA, you know, and other sources that, you know, has an article based on that himself. And when I saw it, I was like, wow, that's really rough at this stage of the game. You know, here we are in January, and April 1st, we have to have a report. That's kind of late now. It's going to cause some issues.
Agreed. Chief.
Just so everybody on the committee knows, when I'm going to send, when I finish doing my analysis, if I'm making like an assertion in this analysis saying that we do this, there's going to be a policy attached to that as a resource for you to all look at. And so you will have a chance to see the policies that are relevant. And I'm going to try and get this draft done by the end of next week at the latest. And it'll go to Mr. Egan, and once he gives it a look, he'll be able to distribute it. And we may be able to discuss it on February 3rd. Hopefully we will, and we can take a look at all those things. And, you know, I don't think the schedule is as tight as you all are envisioning.
The February 3rd is a public listening session. That's not necessarily a stakeholders thing, right? Or am I reading that wrong?
No, that's correct. But I think, you know, I think to the chief's point, I think we're getting somewhere good. Everybody's making some good points. I think if Chief thinks he's going to have a draft report and the village attorney's office can review it, look at it, add some of the notes from tonight. I had the final report due February 26th. We could certainly build in after February 3rd, following this committee's review, potentially a meeting or two amongst the stakeholders, not as the public listening, to take some comments on that report. So I think that might work nicely. Thank you all for your points. I saw Mr. Jenkins.
Hey, just to go off that, not to go, I'm going off that topic for a little bit, just to say this. I know when you know, we're doing this and it's you know, we want to look at policies and policing and everything, but I know it's very tough when you're getting looked at, and it might feel like a bit of an indictment coming from certain people. I myself, you know, I'm gonna speak very openly and passionately, but I want to just assure that to all the police officers, the chiefs, that we as community leaders, or you know, people of the church, or whoever else might be out on the committee, we're doing everything possible to make sure that our crowds, our people know to have faith in the police, and that you guys do a very, very hard job. We love you. We love you for protecting us, and want that to be known. We don't want to get up here, especially me. I don't want to get up here and you know, I'm telling you how it is, but at the same time, I completely trust you guys. I want it to be an open dialogue between us. I respect your hard job, and I want it to be reciprocated back and forth. So I don't want anybody to ever feel like, you know, oh God, they're coming down, they think this, or they hate us. That's not what's going on. I know that definitely in the summertime, that was the idea being thrown out there. That's not what we're teaching the people in the community. That's not what we preach. Anything we teach them, the police have a very hard job. They do their job greatly. You know, there may be some things we can work on, and that's what this is for. So never take it as an indictment, and just try to, you know, keep your minds open and try to please, like, listen to what we're saying, because it's real. I'm coming from a real place, but it's not a place of hate. It's a place of deep, deep respect. And I teach anybody that I know. I have a youth group that I teach them, hey, pay attention, listen to the police. They're just doing their job. Respect the police. They're doing a very hard job. And mostly all of them do it correctly. There's very few that do it wrong, but we just have to, you know, get eyes open and have dialogue for those instances that it is wrong. And that's what we're just trying to clear up here. And from my understanding of what's going on here, just have an open, you know, more open-ended, because, you know, when it's closed off, it seems funny, and that's not good. And that's where a lot of the mistrust comes from. So we need to have this, so there's a lot more trust, and then everybody will be like, you know, on you guys' side, because we definitely are on your side, and, you know, we believe in you, and we just want, you know, you guys to believe in us just like we believe in you, and then we'll have the faith back and forth.
Thank you for that. Ms. Bernstein.
Yeah, I just, you know, I wanted to get more of a background and, you know, from the chief, and whether there's an openness to have any kind of civilian oversight, or something like you have in New York City, where there are other mechanisms. If there is a complaint, that you're not just submitting it to the police department, and it's not just going to the chief, you know, in order to establish trust and kind of a safety mechanism where people feel like there is other oversight. I mean, that is actually my background, where I went into local, you know, police departments and sat down with police officers who were doing internal affairs, and went, as an attorney, went over the investigations with them, and, you know, wrote notes on it and so on. But I think that in terms of the mission, at least as I read it in the governor's report, it's about creating that kind of reform in the police department, even if here everything is working extremely well, and there are very few complaints. But I think the question is the structure, and is the structure, you know, come into the 21st century, and have we, you know, followed the guidelines? Are we going to be able to be open to those reforms. So that's, you know, the question. And as the panel, are we going to have some input into, you know, reforming it in ways that the community may think is important to, you know, have the police department in a partnership with the community?
Well, this process is actually a village board process. We're just participating in it. So I think the village board would probably be more appropriately answer that. We do have another attorney in addition to Mr. Egan that reviews our work and reports to the village board. He works for the village, not for the police department. So if we're off track, I'm going to get, you know, checked, for lack of a better way to put it. Whether or not there's some civilian oversight is kind of beyond my ability to say.
Yeah, I think to Ms. Bernstein's point, I think the governor's office envisioned if we felt as stakeholders that this was something that the board should really consider and do, we should make that recommendation and have that included into the report. The mayor's office and the certification that's required afterwards just certifies that the process was done and that the report was in. But I think the context of the report, this stakeholder group is going to make recommendations such as that perhaps we should increase civilian complaint participation and review, and that we should increase the ability for other avenues for complaint with the police department besides just the, you know, to Mr. Jenkins' point, besides just the department itself. That it's kind of self-defeating to have the complainers about the complaint to the complainers, you know, and that's a good point. And I think that those points in the policies as the draft report, once we have the context to discuss it in, should form the basis for a recommendation from this committee. Any other questions at this point? Okay, so I think that this is very productive. So let's schedule February 3rd for the stakeholders group public listening session. We will advertise that and certainly advertise that to your groups. In February, we'll look to have, if we have this draft report from the chief with the backup policies as analyzed through the EO 203 process, let's look towards scheduling another meeting of this group as suggested by Ms. Fotino for another stakeholder group meeting, review that report with an eye towards finalizing it towards the end of February. And then we'll pick up the rest of the schedule for March, which then again is a race towards the finish line. With that said, if we were going to does the group agree to close the survey, let's say Friday, February 12th, give almost a full month for additional responses. And then we can schedule, say, a meeting the week after that to analyze the report. Does that sound approximately right? I mean, we'll nail down some dates by email.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, all right, perfect. So let's do that. Let's close that survey the 12th. We will get the survey out revised. We may lean on some of you for the Spanish translation, so that would be great. And then we'll get it out to and post it up this week and get it out there. But with that being said, that's the end of my formal part of the program. I always go to the good of the order on if anyone has anything under Robert's rules to add, anything additional tonight. All right. Thank you guys so much. Thank you for bearing with me as I try to throw everybody as a master of ceremonies through this. I do wish we were all in person, as I think we all do, but thank you for being patient with me. And again, we really appreciate this collaborative process, and we will get through it. We will get through it together. So thank you very much. Appreciate it. Have a good evening.
You too. Good night. Thank you.
Good night. Thank you. Thank you guys for your time.